Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out the most unusual recording session of all time.
The story of Yellow Submarine is much weirder than you thought, and I'm going to play through every take to show you how dramatically the song changed from something quite dark into a playful children's song, including the surprising way they created all the sound effects with simple tools that you might find at home. But perhaps...
Interesting. Wait, let me read this here. Demo 1, John's idea. Demo 2, Paul's idea, stitching together. May 26, basic track, lead vocal overdubs. June 1st, sound effects, backing vocals. Interesting. I didn't know this was a dark thing. I thought it was like a kid's song for Ringo to sing.
Something quite dark into a playful children's song, including the surprising way they created all the sound effects with simple tools that you might find at home. But perhaps the most surprising thing is that these early takes actually solve a mystery of how it was written. For each album, the Beatles tried to find one song for Ringo to sing, and the narrative has always been that Yellow Submarine was a song written by Paul McCartney for Ringo.
I just remember lying in bed, just that moment before you're going to sleep, that little twilight moment, when silly ideas come into your head anyway.
But the earliest...
That's the version of the story I've heard.
Moment when silly ideas come into your head anyway.
But the earliest recording of the song reveals something very different.
In the place where I was born, no one cared, no
John Lennon
one
singing.
cared. And the name when I was born, no one cared, no one cared. And
This early demo suggests that the first trace of the idea actually came from John. John's demo is a much darker idea about his childhood, in a different style and even a different time signature, but it's clearly the origin of the final song that we all know. This is even more surprising considering what John said during an interview in 1980. Yellow Submarine is Paul's baby. Donovan helped with the lyrics. I helped with the lyrics too. We virtually made the track come alive in the studio, but based on Paul's inspiration. Paul's idea, Paul's title. Written for Ringo.
It's kind of rare that John would give up so much credit for something, especially if he wrote the whole verse section.
So how did this dark idea by John turn into a playful, psychedelic children's song credited to Paul? Everything starts to become much clearer when we listen to the second songwriting tape of Yellow Submarine. It's correct to say that Paul had the idea for the sing-along chorus as well as the overall theme, and Paul was probably looking to bring in more material and decided to use John's idea. This stitching together of ideas between John and Paul was becoming more common as they began to spend more time writing separately, and Yellow Submarine is a good example of this. The second songwriting tape is the first time we hear the stitching together of these two ideas, a take that shows John struggling to take his idea in 3/4 time and play it to match Paul's idea in 4/4.
in the town where I, oh no, that's in the town. That's why I where I was born.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the town where I was born.
Paul took a sad song and made it better because eventually they get their two ideas working together and we hear Paul's chorus for the first time.
We all live in a yellow submarine. Look out, yellow submarine. Get down, yellow submarine.
Get down.
With the basis of the song mostly complete, the Beatles then worked on the song in a way that was becoming more familiar to them. Bring the idea to the studio and craft the final idea as they record it. Recording began on the 26th...
You know, I've heard some demos of theirs before, and a lot of studio outtakes over the years, and something that they tried a lot was changing the feel and the time signature. Some of those earlier songs, when they would do the first take of the actual recording, it would be maybe in 4/4 time, but by the time you hear it and they do the final take, it's swung or it's in 3 time. And I think they're doing that here as well. And I think that's a trick, not a trick, but like a move, something to see if it feels better that way. A little option that most songwriters don't always consider, but it can be very effective, I guess.
And craft the final way that was becoming more familiar to them. Bring the idea to the studio and craft the final idea as they record it. Recording began on the 26th of May 1966. On this day, May 26th, the Beatles recorded the framework of the song, 4 takes of the rhythm track, and then overdubbed the main vocals. Take 5 was a tape-to-tape reduction of take 4, ready for the later superimposition of the many and varied sound effects. This was bounced down to take 5 to make space for more tracks. Ringo then added his lead vocal with the other 3 recording backing vocals.
1, 2, 3. In the town where I was born.
His voice sounds sped up. They must have recorded it at a slower speed, so when they play it at the normal speed, it's higher pitch.
1, 2, 3. In the town where I was born lived a man who sailed to sea, and he told us of his life in the land of submarines.
The backing vocals were then double-tracked.
Such a endearing vocal, isn't it?
And he told us of his life in the land of submarines.
The backing vocals were then double-tracked and Ringo added some maracas. Although this is the take used on the final song, for the final mix they slowed the tape down. If I play them side by side, you can hear the difference.
2, 3. In the town where I was born. In the town where I was born.
So it was the opposite. They recorded it at a higher speed and then slowed it down. So his voice is slowed down. It's not sped up. Interesting.
With the basic rhythm track now in place, they took a week off whilst George Martin recovered from his illness. The Beatles returned to the studio on the 1st of June. Sessions don't come much more unusual than this one, the sound effects superimpositions for Yellow Submarine. On the final mix, only 4 main ideas survived. The ocean sound in verse 1, the party sound in verse 2, the marching band interlude, and the sound effects solo.
Okay.
They also overdubbed some more percussion and backing vocals, but as we'll find out, there were more effects recorded that were later discarded, including one at the very beginning, the most unusual, which took by far the longest to record, an introductory poem written by John, recited by Ringo.
Yellow Submarine, and we will march till 3 the day to see them gathered there. From Landergroats to John O'Green, with Stepney do we tread, to see us Yellow Submarine, we love it. In the town where...
Most of that afternoon was spent trying to record a spoken word introduction to Yellow Submarine. I pulled out the old radio trick of shaking coal in a cardboard box to simulate footsteps, and Ringo did his best to emote, deadpan, but the final result was, in a word, boring. Even though we spent hours and hours putting it together, the whole idea was eventually scrapped. For the remaining sound effects...
Hey, that's great. I love that they took hours and hours to do that, and then we're like, let's just not have it. Most people would say, but we spent hours on it. We gotta use it.
Putting it together, the whole idea was eventually scrapped. For the remaining sound effects, they raided the store cupboard in the studio. The first verse originally included a bell, but this too was scrapped in the final mix.
Who sailed to sea, and he told
That's not it.
us of his life.
Sounds familiar.
In the land of submarines. So we said...
Next came the sound of the ocean, created by George Harrison's swirling water in a tin bath, and this did survive onto the final mix.
To the sun.
George Harrison swirling water in a bath? That sounds like the ocean. How did they do that? Maybe they slowed it down to make the waves sound bigger. That's amazing. I didn't know that.
To the sun. Wow. Till we found...
The first verse also contained another vocal overdub, probably by John, and something that sounds like a cash register. These were later scrapped.
We all live in a yellow submarine. Yellow submarine. Yellow submarine.
The second verse contained...
I recognize that sound. I feel like I thought it was in there during that break where they're making the ship sounds. I guess it's submarine sounds. Where like raise the sail, or I don't know what they're saying, but it's like a captain screaming at the crew.
Yellow submarine, yellow submarine.
The second verse contains a party sound effect. People began clinking wine glasses and shouting out at random. Those background screams during the second verse came from Patty Harrison, which was always ironic to me, considering how quiet she usually was.
Huh.
Followed by a marching band. There is some uncertainty about the source of this. George Martin once said that there was a real marching band in the studio, but Jeff Emmerich remembers it was created from a sample. This seems to be the most likely option, possibly a slowed down and spliced up version of a French marching band song.
Oh.
Then of course comes the famous sound effects solo.
That's a lot of editing to get that to sound like that. What?
There is some seems to be the most likely option, possibly a slowed down and spliced up version of a French marching band song. Then of course comes the famous sound effects solo, again created using basic tools that they had at their disposal. The sound of the water in this case comes from John blowing bubbles through a straw. And finally, perhaps the most interesting recording idea of all was John's echoing of the lead vocal in the final verse. John wanted it to sound as though he was singing underwater, so he recorded his vocal with the microphone encased in a condom and submerged inside a bottle filled with water. This idea didn't work, and so instead he sang with the microphone plugged into a guitar amplifier.
Sky of blue and sea of green in our yellow submarine.
Breaking with precedent, the Beatles released the song as both a single and also kept it on the Revolver album. Unsurprisingly, the song has gone on to survive with a legacy filled with myth and speculation about its interpretation. But Paul insists this was written as a commercial song, a kid's song. People say Yellow Submarine. What's the significance? What's behind it? Nothing. I knew it would get connotations, but it was just a children's song. Kids get it straight away.
Y'all be sure to go to David Hartley and like and subscribe. I didn't know all that. I didn't know all that. They spent a lot of time on a children's song. I bet it was fun. I've also heard something he didn't mention was that I heard that Mal Evans, their roadie and good friend, had a bass drum strapped on him, like a marching bass drum. They were walking around the studio. He was hitting it, and everybody else was following around him in a line, and they were singing the chorus, "We all live in a yellow submarine." But he didn't mention that. Maybe that's not true. Maybe that's a false story I heard. I wish video cameras were more prevalent back then, or even invented. I guess they only had film cameras. But I wish they had as many cameras as we do now so they could have documented all that. We could see it for real. Well, y'all, I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see y'all next time. Later.